All right, let's talk about one of the most incredible turning points in all of history. We're going to look at the exact moment a small, persecuted faith suddenly found itself at the very center of the Roman Empire. And this isn't just some story about religion. It's about how one single battle completely changed the map for the entire Western world.
And that brings us to the big question, right? How does that even happen? How does a faith where people are literally being hunted and killed by the government suddenly become the official religion of that exact same government? It sounds impossible. But to get our heads around it, the source material we're looking at points to this really powerful ancient metaphor.
And that metaphor is the olive tree. It comes from the Apostle Paul's letter to the Romans. The quote here really gets to the point. Thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Basically, you don't support your faith supports you. But there's a much deeper story here, a story about pure survival.
So let's break this down. In this allegory, the roots of the tree, that's the gospel itself, the core beliefs. The original branches, the tame ones, well, that was the house of Israel. But then something interesting happens. New wild branches, the Gentiles, the non-Jews, they get grafted onto this tree. And the huge question is, why?
Paul himself actually calls this a mystery. Why were these wild branches brought in? Why was the gospel taken to the Gentiles? Our source argues that it wasn't just because Israel had rejected the Lord. No, there was another, way more urgent reason going on, a reason that had everything to do with the survival of the roots themselves. And here's the solution to that mystery, according to the sources. It's pretty amazing. The wild branches were grafted in to save the tree. Their whole purpose was to nourish the roots, to keep them alive, so the entire thing wouldn't just perish. And what's so critical to get here is that the Gentiles weren't just invited to the party. They were brought in to be the lifeline. Okay, so let's look at how this plays out in the real world, because this was a full-blown crisis. By the early 300s, things were looking dire. In 70 AD, Rome completely destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. By about 200 AD, this particular account says the church in the Americas was totally gone. And then, back in Rome, the great persecution under Diocletian kicks off. The roots of the faith were truly in danger of dying out for good. And this is where the lifeline comes from. But it's from the absolute last place anyone would have looked. A totally unexpected ally. His name was Constantine. Now, get this. He wasn't a believer. The source straight up calls him a heathen general. His number one goal was pure politics. He wanted to reunite the broken Roman Empire with him as the one and only guy in charge. He was the last person on earth you'd expect to save Christianity. So this is where the story takes a wild turn. And it's so interesting because we have two different historians who recorded it. As Constantine is marching on Rome in 312 AD, right before this massive battle, something happens. One historian, Lactantius, says Constantine had a dream. Another, Eusebius, tells a much more dramatic story, a vision up in the sky that not just him, but his entire army saw. So whether it was a dream or a vision, the message was identical, and it was powerful. Constantine sees a Christian symbol, and he gets a divine promise of victory. In this you will conquer. Now notice, this isn't a call for him to get baptized or find salvation. Nope, this is a guarantee of a military win, a political victory. And man, did he need it. To really get why this was so huge, you have to see what he was up against. At the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, right outside Rome, his army was outnumbered 2-1. His chances of winning were basically zero. This was everything, a total make-or-break moment for his career. And he decides, you know what? I'm going to gamble on that promise I was just given. So he has his soldiers paint that Christian symbol on their shield, and they charge. And against all odds, they win. His rival, Maxentius, is killed, and Constantine's tiny army takes the day. Now, Constantine doesn't chuck this up to good luck or his own brilliant strategy. He gives all the credit, 100%, to the power of the Christian God. And that one victory sets off a chain reaction that just transforms everything. The political fallout is immediate, and it's massive. Constantine becomes the sole emperor. Then he declares Christianity the state religion. All of a sudden, being a Christian goes from being a death sentence to being a career move. The Roman elites, the Senate, they all convert. And just like that, the faith is welded to the very foundations of European culture. And this brings us right back to that olive tree. According to this interpretation, this is how the mystery was solved. The wild branches, a heathen Roman general and his entire political empire, they got grafted in. And through this unbelievable act of pure political and military power, they ended up nourishing the roots of the gospel, saving them for the future. So that leaves us with this huge, compelling question, doesn't it? Was Constantine's victory a divine miracle, a direct intervention from God to save a dying faith? Or was it a masterstroke from a brilliant politician who saw a powerful new symbol that could unify an empire? The source gives us a theological case, but history shows it was probably a messy combination of both, leaving us to wonder about that tangled, complicated relationship between faith and power that really did shape the world we live in today.